In this video, we will be taking a look at the different colors that we see in the designs that we load and save in the Stitch Pro STI program. We'll also be taking a look at the origin point for those designs. We'll be taking a look at the needle changes that are set on the embroidery machine itself so the designs are run in the right colors, and we'll finish up by taking a good long look at the very useful information sheet that is part of the DataStitch Stitch Pro STI program. Let's get started. I'm going to open up a file that I digitized some time ago in the Stitch Pro STI program. It's a file of a baseball. And when I load it up, because I saved it in the format that is native to the program, the STI file, I had set the colors to reflect what the baseball is going to look like when it's run on a garment. Here we can see that the baseball has a nice white fill, it's got red laces, and a nice black outline. Everything that you digitize in the DataStitch program, you will set the colors, and when you save it, it's going to load up in the same colors over and over again. And just to further illustrate that, I'm now going to load up the expanded format file of the same design, the STX file that is native to the DataStitch Stitch Pro program. And once again, it's in the proper colors, a white fill, red laces, and a nice black outline. Now, if you purchase a design from one of the many companies that provide stock designs, or if a customer brings you a design that they had done somewhere else, it might not load up in the colors that you would expect to see in the embroidery. Let me load up that same file that was saved as a DST file, a Tajima file. And here we can see that now the baseball actually has a red fill, a red-brown fill, some teal-colored laces, and a very light green outline. Well, there's a couple of ways that we can change that. You can go to the layer tabs and double-click on the first tab, and that will bring up the color palette and set that color as white. You can double-click on the second tab, and that brings up the color palette, and you can set those laces to be red. You can double-click on the third tab, the third layer, and set the outline as black. We'll go ahead and select all layers, and once again the baseball is in the colors we'd expect to see for a baseball. Now, if I were to save that as an STX file, and I'll go ahead and give that the suffix A, MS088A, and yes, I'm going to replace that. Now every time I load up that file, it's going to be in the same colors in which I saved it, with the white fill, the red laces, and the black outline. Now, the designs that you digitize on the DataStitch Stitch Pro STI software, usually the very first points that you program in or digitize in are a lockdown to begin sewing any given thing that you want to sew, whether it's an individual letter, an outline, or let's take a look at the fill of this baseball. I'll select the first layer from the layer tabs area, and I'm going to deselect the stitches from the design view tab, and the very first item that I digitized in this design was the lockdown for the white. It begins at the very top. I use some underlay, and then I began stitching the fill itself, which is a series of perfectly parallel stitches. Now, even though that was the first thing I programmed into the design, was the lockdown that begins all this, all of these designs are going to begin in the absolute center of the design, from top to bottom, left to right. The program automatically begins you in the absolute center of these designs in a needle up, and then the needle floats without leaving a row of stitches to where you begin with your lockdown. So since the program automatically does this, I can add lettering to this baseball and it would still be perfectly centered. All I have to do is program the embroidery machine to begin in the center of any given sized hoop, and I won't have any unhappiness with the needle running into the hoop. That can lead to expensive repairs. Now, we've discussed how you set the colors on the design itself. Probably the best way to do this is to go to the tree view area, right click on the first layer, and then move down to the property view area and open up the items that you have under appearance. Here you could double click display color and change the color of the baseball, which we won't do. The reason I'm showing you this is here we can actually give the color a name, and let's say that's polar white. We can also enter a thread number, and let's say that's actually Madeira, say 112. And then we can go up to the second layer, right click on that, and enter the name of the thread that's going to be used for that section. Let's say that's flame red, and let's say that's actually a rayon thread and its number is 37. Once again, up to the tree view area, right click, we'll give this color the name, and I'm making these up so don't try to find these threads in any catalog, jet black, and I'll make up a company, the Johnson Thread Company, and the number for that is 512. Now, the reason you would probably prefer to set the colors that way would be because these designs actually have an information sheet. And here, when we go to the property view area, you can give the design a name. Let's call this one baseball. And the file name, we'll just enter the number for this file, MS088. And we can even enter what kind of garments this design will be sewn on, in this case shirts and caps. Now we've entered all this information and we can print an information sheet out. We can take a look at the print preview for our information sheet. Here, let me maximize that, and we can see the design's name is baseball, that it's going on shirts and caps. We can see the size, it's about 2 inches tall and 2 inches wide, and we also have a stitch count for the design, and we have the color sequence. You can print this information sheet out and you can give a hard copy to your customer so that they can see exactly what their design will look like on the garment, and your machine operator can use this to set the color sequence on the embroidery machine. Here we can see that polar white runs first, flame red runs second, and jet black runs third. Let me close that out. Now, the needle changes on the embroidery machine are set separately. You transfer the design over to the embroidery machine, or you save it to a memory stick or a USB stick, however you get your designs to your machine. And when you load this design up on your embroidery machine, you're going to have to set a needle sequence. If this was the first design that your company ever ran, then you might actually have white on needle number 1, red on needle number 2, and the black outline, the black on needle number 3. Well, 2 months down the road, after you've run hundreds of designs and swapped out threads on different needles, by the next time you actually ran this baseball, white might be on needle number 7, red might be on needle number 5, and black might be on needle number 1. So that's why you individually set for each design the color sequence according to which needles the thread is on. So in review, in this video we've taken a look at the colors of the designs that we see in the DataStitch Stitch Pro STI software. We've discussed how If the designs are saved in the formats that are native to the program, the STI or the STX files, then the colors are the same each and every time you load that design. We've taken a look at how you change the needle sequence when you transfer the design over to the embroidery machine. You set needle number 1, 3, and 5 according to how the thread is loaded up on your embroidery machine. We've also taken a look at the starting points for these designs. Even though you usually don't see the absolute origin on the screen, or you don't begin at the absolute origin when you're digitizing a design, the program automatically centers these designs so they fit perfectly in certain size hoops. And we've also taken a look at the very useful information sheet that is built into the software. It's very handy to give your customers a hard copy, or to have your machine operator holding that while they're setting up the embroidery machine to run each job.